In what is commonly called the fire temple, Zoroastrians invoke the vision of the prophet Zarathustra, Zoroaster, who calls God the one God, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of wisdom. To Zoroastrians, the flame is sacred because it is symbolic of the spirit of truth, illumined by the light of wisdom, which is inward, the light which illuminates the mind. More than 3,000 years ago, Zarathustra spoke of a monotheism which crystallized the relationship between the spiritual and the worldly existence of mankind. It is perhaps relevant to consider the beliefs of earlier centuries to appreciate the radical nature of Zarathustra's philosophy. Long before the coming of Zarathustra, indeed since primitive times, all natural phenomena were attributed to supernatural forces. Volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, calamity and bounty were both forces to be worshipped. For instance, in India, Bhumata, Mother Earth, has long been held in awe and reverence. Gratitude, too, for Mother Earth is generous and provides for man's sustenance. Fire was held in reverence because it was useful, and also because it could be dreadful and terrifying. There appeared to be no difference in origin between good forces and evil forces. Therefore, both were equally revered. This is one reason why primitive religion was primarily concerned with propitiation. The cult of the shaman, or witch doctor, is far from obsolete. There was human sacrifice and the sacrifice of animals, rituals which still persist in some parts of the world. In time, out of this primitive form of religion emerged ancient organized religion. This development meant, in essence, the separation of the natural from the supernatural. The distinction between the spiritual and the temporal world is manifest. For instance, some Buddhist sects believe in good spirits and evil spirits, who are perpetually in conflict, so that there are gods who are good and demons who are evil. This personification of supernatural forces is to be found in the Hindu pantheon and the Greek pantheon. For instance, the god of rain, Indra, or the god of fire, Vulcan. The gods, although they are immortal, have human traits. They are both good and malevolent, so they must be worshipped and propitiated by gifts and offerings to keep them benevolent. The technique of communing with the gods came to be the monopoly of priests, for they said only they knew of the intricacies of social transaction with various deities. As religious consciousness develops further, there is a realization that neither the world nor human life in it can be comprehended in material terms alone. There is another mode of existence, the spiritual, which is needed to understand the nature of reality and give meaning to our individual existence. This was the vision of Zarathustra, commonly called Zoroaster in Greek and other languages. Zoroastrianism was one of the earliest monotheistic faiths. It provides us with a comprehensive view of life and of the unity of one God and all of creation. To convey this totality, Zarathustra composed a number of poetic hymns called the Gathas, which contain a well-formed theology. The Gathas were originally recited by Zarathustra in the ancient Avestan language. The Gathas were handed down in an oral tradition for many centuries. They were written down in the Pahlavi in about the 4th century AD. Subsequently, the Gathas were transcribed from the Pahlavi script into the Avestan script in the 6th century AD, the script we know today. In all, there are 238 verses. In the opening verse, the prophet anticipates the revelation, which will bring joy to creation.
Ayya yasa nemanga, ushtana zastora fedreya, mainyeush mazdao pauruim, spentaya asha vispeng shautana, vangeush kratum manango, yashne vishageusha urvanem.
With outstretched hands I pray to thee, O invisible, benevolent Spirit. Vouchsafe to me in this hour of joy all righteousness of action, all wisdom of the good mind, that I may thereby bring joy to the soul of creation.
Armato ishna spento, vochisti yugda ishyothna, Daina Hashem spenvat, VOHU-kshatrem manangao, Mazdao dadatauro, Tem vanguhim yasa ashim.
The man of devotion is beneficent to all. He is beneficent because of his wisdom, because of his realization of truth, because of the goodness in his thoughts, in his words, in his deeds. Unto him Ahura Mazda shall grant the kingdom of the good mind. And verily this blessing I too long for.
The theology of the Gathas may be articulated in terms of 6 major concepts, collectively called the ASHA SPENTA, translated as benevolent immortals or holy eternal essences. These 6, as we see here, are taken to emanate from Ahura Mazda, and they are generally divided into 3 pairs. The first starts with VOHU-MANA, which means the good mind. It is the capacity to reason and grasp the ultimate nature of reality, both in the natural and the moral world. This is related to ASHA, which literally means truth. But this truth refers to the ultimate underlying order of the universe, that principle by which the universe is supposed to evolve and progress. When one acts in accordance with that principle, then one is acting righteously. And therefore righteousness is also one of the meanings of ASHA. Coming to the next pair, find SPENTA-ARMAITI and KHSHATHRA-VAIRYA. SPENTA-ARMAITI theologically means piety. In the moral framework, it means benevolence. It is that which is present in an individual which inspires him to goodness. Such an individual inspired by SPENTA-ARMAITI, is a benevolent individual. This is related to KHSHATHRA-VAIRYA, which literally means holy dominion, but it is that force which creates and establishes a good society. Benevolent individuals form a good society, and a good society is one in which benevolent individuals find contentment and happiness. Coming to the last pair, consequential one, when these ideals have been satisfied, HAURVATAT is achieved, well-being which progressively becomes perfection. And then finally, immortality and eternal bliss, which is what AMARITAT means. And in terms of these 6 concepts, the ideal structure of the theology of the Gathas is formulated. Given the ideal theology of the Gathas, we now turn to the question of how this conception can be applied to the actual existence of our world. The world is not an ideal world, it is filled with imperfection. How does the theology of the Gathas attempt to explain this? The theology is extended by introducing 2 conceptions, the conceptions of an abstract good and an abstract evil, which in conflict explain the nature of reality.
And so began the spreading of the message of Zarathustra among the people of Iran.
Atta mainyo pauruye yaema khafena asravatem manahicha vachahicha shauthnaihi vayo akemcha aocha hudongo eresh vishyata noidusdongo.
In the beginning, there were 2 primal spirits, twins spontaneously active. These were the good in the evil, in thought, word, and in deed. Between these 2, let the wise choose aright, be good, not base.
When Zarathustra spoke about good and evil, he was not speaking of 2 deities or divinities. The term he used were the 2 minus, a difficult term to translate, but it could be better interpreted as 2 mentalities or spiritual attitudes. The good one is SPENTA-ARMAITI, so named in the Gathas, and the opposite is ANGRE-MAITI, a term which Zarathustra does not use in the Gathas, but which was brought in very soon after the advent of the Prophet. Now, SPENTA-ARMAITI is the all-pervading spirit of goodness. It is identified by that spirit which attempts to promote and fulfill ASHA. The evil spirit does the opposite. It attempts to frustrate ASHA, and thus the 2 spirits are in eternal conflict. The purpose of Zarathustra's philosophy is to inspire humanity and all of nature to move with SPENTA-ARMAITI and thus bring forth the spirit of goodness throughout creation. Evil would then be destroyed by the simple fact that evil, when recognized as evil, is not chosen. And when it is not chosen, it gradually ceases to exist.
Zarathustra in his Gathas shows us how to eliminate evil and to realize perfection, thereby generating a moral and spiritual revolution. This was difficult to achieve because of the opposition of the old entrenched beliefs and practices of his time. In despair, Zarathustra cries out to God.
Kam nemoizam kutra nemoeni pairi khete ush airya manascha dadaiti night max naush ya verezena hecha ne dadake ush yoi sastaro dregvanto katha tva mazdash noshai ahura.
To what land shall I turn? And whither turning shall I go? For my kinsmen and my peers have deserted me. Not the people, nor their wicked rulers favor me. How shall I satisfy thee, O Ahura Mazda?
It is evident that Zarathustra was a man haunted by a vision which pursued him throughout his life, and his poetry is not only an autobiography of an idea, it is the self-portrait of a prophet. It is remarkable that the power of his conviction prevailed over considerable opposition and has stood the test of time even to this day. However few in number, Zoroastrians are to be found in every corner of the world, but mostly in Iran and India. There are several active fire temples in the city of Bombay, which has one of the largest congregations of Zoroastrians in the world. In India, Zoroastrians are known as Parsis, after the province of Parsa in Persia, whence they originally migrated to India. They landed on the west coast, and so we find fire temples and Parsis in small towns and in the rural areas of Gujarat. Zarathustra's philosophy encompassed not only the life of the spirit, but of our day-to-day living. He never advocates isolation. Rather, he says, we should be involved with the world around us. He advocates action.
Accha toy vaim khyama yoi im prashem kerenon ahom mazdaos cha hurango amoyastra barana ashachao yathatra manao bhavat yatra chisti shangat maithao.
So may we be, like those making the world progress towards perfection. May Mazda and the divine spirits help us and guide our efforts through truth. For a thinking man is where wisdom is at home.
Tadzi Mazda vairim astavaite ushtanai datao Vangeush Sethna manango Yoizi geush verezene azyao Shmakam huchishtim ahura Krateush.
This precious reward of thine, O Mazda, thou givest by way of the good mind. Thou givest vigorous bodily life to him who works for and tends to thy creation, who furthers thy beneficent plan by the power of his understanding, guided by thy spirit of truth.
If the world is to be saved, this can only happen if man responds to the needs and sufferings of his fellow men in accordance with the principles which emanate from Ahura Mazda. This, in essence, is the message of Zarathustra.
Ushtamai kamai chit vasekshaya smazau dayat ahro utayuiti tevishim gattoi vasemi Hashem deredyai tatmoi dao armaite rayo ashish vangeush gaem manango.
Happiness be the lot of him who works for the happiness of others. Let the Lord grant him health and endurance for the effort to uphold truth. I beseech these very gifts from thee. Mayest thou, through Almighty, the spirit of devotion, bless me with the perfection of a life guided by the good mind.
What more can a dying man or woman do in consonance with Zarathustra's teachings than to give the natural gift of sight to a deprived person? A person who will see the wonder of Ahura Mazda's creation for the first time. The first glimmer and perception of light.
The notion of religiosity in Zarathustra has been insightfully expressed by my colleague. The extraordinary contribution of Zarathustra is the profound realization that man can both serve and honor God more meaningfully in the enactment of the lordly principles of truth and good thinking among his fellow men than in the awesome reverence founded upon fear and dread. It is true that God merits praise and worship, but chiefly so because he created and offered to his people those instruments of good which can in turn offer dignity and happiness in the world of men.
As written in Gujarati, Humata, Hukata, Huvarashta, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds are Zarathustra's guiding principles for a good way of life. Among Zoroastrians, the Navjot ceremony, the initiation thread ceremony, is of particular importance. A child is being asked to commit herself to good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, and above all, in everyday living, to the words of Zarathustra. Happiness unto him who brings happiness unto others. Will the child understand? Will her fragile mind accept and transmute this truth into action? This hope is held by all Zoroastrians. There is a growing number of people, especially among the young, who are questioning the emphasis on materialism in contemporary life. Sensitive young people are disillusioned by the rat race of modern society and the ambition to attain more and more wealth and luxury. There seems to be a lack of purpose, of meaning in life, and they are in search of more humanistic values, a more coherent worldview. They no longer want to live in a spiritual wasteland. It was the same in the time of Zarathustra. His was the lone voice in a spiritual wilderness. He was cursed and abused, and his words were distorted. Considering such a history, it is amazing that so much of his poetry has survived in an uncorrupted form, for instance, in the Iran of today.
Tatva peresa vereshmoi vocha ahura katha angeush vahistaya paurvim Kathe suidiaye paitishat. Was spento erectem vispoibio. Haro mainu ahumbish urvatho mazdao.
This I ask thee, tell me truly, O Ahura, what is the source of the best existence? How shall those who seek it receive the blessed recompense? Surely such a holy one, through righteousness, is a healer of existence, beneficent to all, a genuine friend, O Mazda.
Perhaps it was in these very words that Zarathustra spoke to his ruler, King Vistasp. Vistasp was the first king to respond to the idea of the unity of Ahura Mazda's creation, and Zoroastrianism began to spread among the people. In the 5th century before Christ, in the time of the Emperor Darius, Zoroastrianism became the accepted religion of the great Persian Empire, which extended from the Mediterranean in the west to the Indus in the east. In the magnificent city of Persepolis in Iran, Darius left behind stone inscriptions echoing the voice of Zarathustra. There is ample evidence, both archaeological and historical, to indicate that the Jews, the Greeks, and the Romans of ancient times were influenced by Zarathustra's teachings. In the last 100 years, Indo-Aryan studies have indicated that there was considerable interaction between the early civilizations of India and Iran. Indeed, in some instances, the Vedas are very similar in form and style of recitation to the Gathas of Zarathustra. This is a madrasa, the old Persian word for school, where children come to learn about Zoroastrianism.
Atravakshanu gushodumnu srautav. Yecha asnat yecha durat ishathav. Noim vispa chitrezi mazdam godum.
Hearken unto me, O ye who come from near and from afar. Listen to me as I speak forth now. Ponder over these teachings with care and clear thought.
Tatva peresa vereshmoi vocha ahura. Kasnau dereta zamcha adena baoscha.
This I ask thee, tell me truly, O Ahura, who so balanced the earth and the heavens to keep them apart? Who created the waters and the plants? Who yoked swiftness to the winds and motion to the clouds? Who save thee is the creator of the good mind, O Mazda.
In the teachings of Zarathustra, as expressed in the Gathas, there is always emphasis on the ethical or moral aspect of existence, and he sees the good in all of life. Even trees and plants have life, and they must be loved and cared for. There is divinity in every atom of the universe. All living things are interdependent, and any disturbance of the ecological balance in our world is a lapse from the perfect creation of Ahura Mazda. In Zoroastrian ethics, natural law is characterized as the principle according to which all things come to their full realization. It brings satisfaction to all living beings, happiness to human beings, and harmony to social existence. As Zarathustra said to his own daughter on the occasion of her marriage,
Sakheni vasyam nabyo kainibyo mromi Shmai vyacha vademno menchai mazazdom Vaidodum dainabish abhyaschav Ahum yevange ushmanango Ashave anyo ainim Vivangatu tadzi hoy hushenem angat.
These words do I address to you, maidens who are being married. These counsels do I give to you. Keep them in your mind and lay them to heart. Let each cherish the other with righteousness. Then surely the reward of a happy life shall be yours.
what Zarathustra says of marriage is applicable to all social relationships, indeed to society as a whole.
Achave misde mangat, ahiyav magayav, yavat azu zardishto bunoi thaktayav, paracha mrochas aurachav, yatra mainyos dregvato anasat parav, ivi zayatha mageosh, tematve vayo anghaiti apemem vacho.
O ye men and women, when faithful zeal inspires your life, when tainted thoughts and intentions are rooted out, when the evil within you is destroyed forever, then shall the blessed reward be yours for the good work. And if you fail, alas, alas, shall be your final word.
In all his counsels, Zarathustra emphasizes free will, the freedom of choice.
To live our life to the full, to be able to live it with happiness, not just because I have to. Nobody has come here because you had to come. You choose to come. Now, if we have chosen to be here, then we must live up to that and to be able to understand the great gift of God.
Human nature has freedom as an essential ingredient in it, thus making it possible to choose between good and evil, between peace and violence. Violence and evil characterized by intolerance and inhumanity. An outstanding example of evil in the 20th century is Adolf Hitler.
Noidai betim dushastish ahum merashyat, akavarana dregvau hizva avareto.
Never shall the false teacher destroy existence a second time, for his tongue stands mute, his creed stands exposed.
In his teachings, Zarathustra laid emphasis on the relationship between means and ends, and repeatedly spoke out against violence of any kind. In our times, men like Mahatma Gandhi and Albert Schweitzer personified this belief.
Freedom is a fundamental value in Zoroastrian ethics. The humanity of a moral agent requires that he be free to choose and then be held responsible for that choice. Not only is this value emphasized in moral notions in the Gathas, it is made the basis, the sole basis, for the judgment of human behavior.
Justice is not blind. Justice is impartial. In Zarathustra's philosophy, God is omniscient and just. Yet man must not assume that he is omnipotent. God or Ahura Mazda does not control our actions. Because he has given us free will, we must face the consequences of our actions. However, since we have free will, Zarathustra also makes it quite clear that it is up to us to choose our own way towards reaching perfection, or the ultimate truth.
Hearken with your ears to these best counsels. Reflect upon them with illumined judgment. Let each one choose his creed. With that freedom of choice each must have at great events. O ye, be awake to these my announcements.
Rauta Geushai Shvahishtav, Avainata Sucha Manangav, Avarena Vichithayav, Narem Khakayai Tanuye, Parao Maze Yongo, Ammaine Sasyai Baudanto Piety.
In what Zarathustra calls the last turning of life, did this man remember to be kind rather than angry, smiling rather than hateful, modest in the face of achievement? Did he help creation to nurture itself? This is how he will be remembered. The soul having departed, the body is taken in solemn procession to the towers of silence, even as it was in ancient Iran. Far from habitation, to avoid pollution, in a walled enclosure the body is laid open to the sky. The birds will feed of it, the bones will disintegrate, and the dust thereof will mix with the earth in the eternal cycle of life.
Atvau yazai stavas mazdaura, hadasha vahishta cha mananga, shatra cha yaisho stonghat apaiti, akavare dreng dimane garos roshane.
With truth moving my heart, with best thought inspiring my mind, with all the might of spiritual force within me, I venerate thee, O Mazda, with songs of thy praise. And at the last, when I shall stand at thy gate, I shall hear the echo of my prayers from thy abode of song.